Hello, my name is Uche Pedro. I'm the founder of Bella Niger, and I'm a champion as part of the Gender Equitable Champions project. There's so much potential in this creative economy. I'm a mom of twins. They're 10. Guess what my daughter asks me every day? Where is Aisho Speed now? What country is Aisho Speed? I said, how did you even know Aisho Speed?
Uche Pedro has consistently championed women's empowerment in Nigeria, not just as a conversation, but as a movement rooted in economic power and real independence. At the forefront is Her Money, Her Power, launched in 2024 in partnership with the She Tank. This groundbreaking initiative goes beyond inspiration, focusing on what truly transforms lives: financial independence. It encourages women to control their finances, own property, and make confident, independent financial decisions. Today, we are brainstorming about gender equitable narratives in women's economic empowerment. Our theme is an emphasis on skill development and capacity building, and we've been talking, we played around with a few ideas, and one of the ideas was around women in science, which is often where women are underrepresented, and we've been talking about a woman potentially coming up with a major scientific breakthrough after overcoming some systemic barriers such as being overlooked in the workplace. So we're playing around with this and we're enjoying the discussion. McKinsey just released the Global Institute's analysis, and they were outlining 18 future arenas that could generate $29 to $48 trillion in revenue. And some of these areas really cross the work that you're currently doing. So I'll mention some. As expected, AI services and software, digital advertising, streaming video, video games, robotics. These are areas that many of you touch. And I'm mentioning these things because these are areas that you can actually go deeper into. That trillion that we just mentioned, there's a slice out there of it for you. One of the things I'm also going to be covering today is gender equitable storytelling. So from a Nigerian perspective, here are some of the trends that I want us to look out for. Interestingly, Obi mentioned one of them, which is such a big thing right now, which is the micro dramas, vertical dramas. I'm sure you've seen some of those on TikTok. So when we say that's one of the trends, it's not saying that you have to go and do something identical if that's not your space. But it's saying, what does that tell you about the nature of content today? There is a curiosity about very short content. There's a curiosity about content that has some level of cliffhangers. People want to know what's next. So how can you adapt that in your own way, both as a brand and both on the influencer side? AI is the biggest story of the year and will be one of the biggest drivers of transformation we're going to see. So I'll now jump into gender equitable storytelling. What is gender equitable storytelling? It's basically balanced stories showing both genders in authentic ways. Once again, tying back with the values. There are some times, so let's say you're a content creator that is creating scripted content. Are all the women in your content just walking cliches? Are all the men in your content just carrying out typical tropes? Oh, daddy went to work, mommy stayed at home. Are you challenging some of these norms? It's important because we're building for the next generation. Do you know that what you're making today is history? Sometimes you see something, you're like, this was what they did in the 60s. You are creating history. You are reshaping culture. My 10-year-old is influenced by what Aisho Speed is. Even if I speak English from morning to night, whatever Aisho Speed does has an influence. So these things, what struck, we complain about so many things, but let's look at what are these stories balanced? How is this man behaving in this content? How is this woman behaving in this content? Are we showing only one perspective of young women? There are so many cliches coming out about young Nigerian women. Are we just showing one perspective of them? Or are we showing nuance? So how do we ensure that characters we're building are balanced on both sides? Storytelling is such an important part of why we exist and also the work that we do at Bella Naija. On a personal level, as a mom of a boy and a girl, it's important that they're represented and they get to see a world where who they become is not shaped in a narrow box. Instead, it is quite wide, it is quite nuanced, it's quite dynamic, and they can grow and live a full life that is not just restricted by certain societal norms.
Uche is sitting here, I'll tell you, I was producing Big Brother, 2006, the first one. And I got an email from some girl, I don't know who this girl is. And she says she's in college in Canada. And she's doing a blog and she's writing about the show. I'm like, the show hasn't started. And she was telling me stuff that was happening in my production. Like, yeah, but we heard this, we heard that. And I'm like, how the hell do you hear that? I didn't say it on the email reply, but I was just like, and she's like, yeah, anyway, we want to do this, we want to do that. I said, okay, let's do it this way. I'm gonna introduce you to the guys at Mnet. You talk to them, then they can give you access. And we're sitting here, it's 20 years later. You were still in university. She's built this massive brand, right? And you know, it just came from having integrity. That's what I said. I didn't know her. But the way I was approached, the way she asked, I said, please, we need the support. And of course, Mnet at the point in time is some massive behemoth up here, and she's just some student in some university with an idea. But today, I'm very sure Mnet will never drop her.
You may be a baddie, but also really strict on the corporate side. You may be this and that. So how do we ensure that characters we're building are balanced on both sides? Then now let's look behind the scenes, and this is also for the brands. When you are creating campaigns or even creating events, what is the gender balance there? And I talk about gender balance, people often assume, oh, you're just advocating for women. No, it's about the two sides, the men and the women. So we're looking at it, okay, you want to do this campaign, have a gender balance, explore that, see how it can. You're making this ad, how does the ad depict women and how does the ad depict men? I'm really also very passionate about positive representation of men, because that role modeling and being able to see what we want is so important for both sides. I'm really very also encouraged by male allies and male role models, and even in my life I have that as well. So from my family to my husband to other people as well. So I think in the business side, you know, mentors and the like. So yeah.
Through powerful storytelling, vox pops, social media conversations, and strategic media partnerships, including collaborations with Big Brother Naija, the campaign challenges long-standing societal narrative about gender roles, money, and work. It also highlights a critical truth. Closing the gender gap isn't just good for women, it's good for men and the economy.
What words would you have for creators in this room, media entrepreneurs in this room? What word do you have in terms of gender equitable storytelling in 2026 that you can share with them?
Like I said, you know, I know it's important to tell stories that represent everyone. You know, because when you're watching some of these stories, you want to be able to connect, you want to see yourself in a certain character. So let's say for example, you're telling a story, you're telling a story about someone who's disabled. You know, I mean, a disabled person, they have their wants, they have their desires, they have their aspirations. But many a times, I notice that when you tell the story, they tend to take the comical side of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a disservice to people who are disabled but who are achieving. You don't represent them at the highest level. I mean, I've seen disabled people who are they have PhDs, you know, they have they've attended the highest levels of education, you know, and they're achieving. But I don't see that before. So it's important, you know, when you're, you know, writing your stories or whatever, just make sure you present everyone. I don't want to talk about my presenting a male or presenting, because that's often the conversation. I think that let's leave that for now. Just talk about people who, you know, the unsung heroes, who are not vastly represented properly in storytelling.
The final question I'll ask from the open floor is money. I like the vulnerable moments where you said, look, as a working actor at a certain time, there are some roles that you're like, this is not my first choice, so but they get paid. Even as media entrepreneurs, oftentimes we have to ask ourselves questions. Maybe there are some collaborations where like, I'm not sure about this. Or even as creators, something is trending right now, but at the back of your mind, you're like, I'm not comfortable with this trend, but you're like, if I don't do this now, my TikTok will not go, I need to monetize. Or even in this era of streaming. So I did a talk last week around the trends, digital trends, and live streaming is one of them. And oftentimes in live streaming, people have to do increasingly provocative things to get their attention. So now let's talk about monetization as creatives in 2026. What word do you have regarding that?
So you see, when I first started putting out social media.
Imagine, we didn't have social media when she started. And she's still here.
However,
yes,
it's possible that if I had social media, some of us would not have survived. I think we would have left the industry, because I'm not sure we would have been able to handle it.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know. Now, so as time went on, I built the development brand. I had to put it into. And there are a lot of things I don't know. You know, when it comes to monetizing things you put on social media, I have people in my team who tell me, oh, you need to do things, obviously things that align with my brand and my personality. You know, these are things that you can monetize through social media and things like that. If you're building, obviously you don't and you can't afford a team for that. You owe it to yourself to study how to monetize your content on social media. Now, I understand that sometimes, you know, you want to do, you need to earn money and everything. However, be sure that the content you're putting out there aligns with your brand and personality. Because sometimes people tend to do these things, you know, as I've said, you have to dance and be noisy so you can make money and all that. Oh, well and good. If it works for you, it's okay. However, understand that at some point, your brand will become big. At some point, you want to rebrand. And when you want to rebrand, the content that you put out on the past will be installed on the internet forever. Can you bear the consequences? If you can, fine. But just know, just be sure that whatever it is you're putting out there speaks to you or aligns with you, your brand and your personality. It's very important.
Gender equitable storytelling shows up in our everyday lives in so many ways. This is because of the world that we live in, we consume media from morning to night. You wake up, you probably take a quick look at your phone, look at what's happening on the apps. At night, maybe you're having dinner, you want to watch something on YouTube. So we are exposed to this media all day and all night. And the power of those stories, those authentic stories, but with real characters of all genders doing what they do best, which is just living authentically. Let's watch things that represent us.
We just had a workshop with Uche Pedro from Better Niger. It was very innovative, very intriguing. We learned a lot. I learned a lot about gender equitable storytelling, about how we need to tell stories that talk about the whole human experience, that talk about people as full people, not just telling a one-sided story, but telling a three-dimensional story about humans and everything that they're all about, giving characters agency in their stories and power in their stories, which makes the stories much more interesting and much more entertaining.
So for me, one of the things that I learned during this session is to be intentional about everything I do. You know, especially when it comes to storytelling. So one of the things that I actually do is impacting the girl child through storytelling. So I've had to learn a lot about different AI tools that can be used to create stories that make impact even in the society, in the community, through the content that we produce.
What I've learned about gender equitable storytelling is still the same thing. It simply means that as women, we need to understand the fact that we have the potentials, we have what it takes in us to be able to use our stories to inspire both gender, irrespective of the gender. It doesn't have to be a male or female. It also means that we can also use the AI technology to be able to advance what we do, to be able to monetize, make profit, and actually have a stable and standard procedure on how we do our things. So I think for me, basically, what I've learned today is how best am I going to use AI to structure my content, to show up more, and to be where I want to be. And yes, the mood board also was a very good experience because it helped me to be able to foresee the kind of person, although I know the kind of person I want to be, but it was able to help me to foresee it more and believe that yes, I can do it, because you know, when a woman is empowered, the world is empowered.
This was wholesome. I learned a lot. Learned about new AI tools and how to integrate them into my work as an executive producer and content creator, particularly in the field of mental health. And more importantly, I learned about investments, the money part, very important. And I'll be taking that very seriously. Investing in these AI tools that we use daily for work and our daily lives. Thank you so much, Uche Pedro, for this one. It was really amazing.
Men, women, everybody can benefit from gender equitable storytelling. We oftentimes look at some of the ways that different genders are portrayed in popular media, different tropes, different cliches, and it really doesn't benefit most people. So I think that using the power of case studies and examples, that would really be helpful. So people saying, hey, this movie was actually a box office hit. However, you can see that the main characters were very dynamic, they were very nuanced. Guess what? You can see that this creator is doing very well, let's say on TikTok and YouTube. Guess what? The creator's team is diverse. It's a team that has men, it has women, it's different ages, people with different abilities. That diversity really helps move things forward. That I can only try my best in terms of being a champion and do what is authentic. I think it's something that authenticity plays a huge role in. It's not about forcing anything. It's not about manufacturing anything artificially. It's not even about forcing anybody to do anything. Rather, it's about authentically telling stories that are real.
Increasing women's economic participation can significantly boost the nation's GDP. Beyond this, Bella Naija Styles' annual BNS Women's Month, under Uche Pedro's leadership, continues to spotlight women across industries, from entrepreneurs and executives to creatives and change makers. The platform celebrates leadership, health, professional growth, and entrepreneurship.
Champions project is a very interesting project, and we'll hear a bit more about it when Wajoma comes into the room, and the Media Entertainment Touch project. So it just ties back into using the power of media entertainment to drive changes within our space by culture, by media, by content. All right, so just looking at some of the eras, VHS, video clubs, VCDs, 2000s, the return to cinemas. You know, for some people who may be a bit younger, I remember a time where we actually didn't have any access to cinemas in Nigeria. People would be telling us things like, when we were growing up, there was Ben Cinema, there was this and that. And then finally we started seeing the and now I'm sure my children are 10 years old. I'm sure if I ask them, if I told them that Nigeria did not have cinema that is at this point, they'll be looking at me like, this lady is old, like, what are you talking about? So, of course, we know the era of blockbusters, African magic, engaging into what digital streamers. We even know the first entry of YouTube. So if you remember, before Iroko TV pivoted out, remember YouTube used to have 8 pirated movies and we had Iroko TV. So it's so interesting how we go full circle back into YouTube as a very heavy YouTube era now. Then of course we have our digital streamers, we have our cheap businesses, and of course we have the impact of AI today. So just giving you some visuals to go back. The 1990s. I mean, I remember watching one option and I tried to put something that showed various sides, right? So if you see something like Checkmate, you see a very powerful woman being depicted. If you see something like Parashika, you see a woman in that witchly, scary girl. So it will show that in that era, we actually saw two sides. If somebody watching could see a woman as a boss, or could also see a woman as maybe a wicked mother-in-law or a wicked witch. So it was interesting that we actually saw the two sides on the point. Then we now have to talk about the men. How are the men shown? You know, what? Maybe I'll dive into the audience now. So in this era, how do you feel like men were depicted? I'll ask a man, basketball.
It's more like a trend. What's trending that most people will go with. Like there was a time when it was Kalashika. Most of the films that were coming out at that time were all around the same name. Kalashika, Domitila, names that we don't know what to mean. So it depends on the year, the age. But men used to portray that wanting to find wealth or, just,
There is cross-sectional unexpected collaboration. Let me be transparent. From the area that we sit at Bella Niger, we literally sometimes can watch hundreds of videos in a day. It can be tiring. That element of being unexpected just sparks something different. So for example, in the US, this Marty Supreme promotional tour with Timothy Chalamet, it's been chaotic, but amazing. A few years ago, the Barbie campaign, sometimes you can actually look at these campaigns and say, that was unexpected. Barbie mixing with this, Marty Supreme mixing with this. How does that go hand in hand? Sometimes that's disruption is very important for attention grabbing in an era where people's attention spans are so minute.
I know for sure that when there is life, there is hope. And I choose optimism. I choose to believe that the future is going to be brighter for Africa. I choose to believe that because we've had several decades of women and girls really struggling, I believe that it's going to get better. I choose to believe that seeing my journey, which I'm so grateful for, as a woman who's been able to build a company successfully, create opportunities not only for myself, but for others, for my community, for people that I've never met and I'll never meet. I know that I'm not one of one. I'm one of millions. And there are going to be other girls and other women who are going to do fantastic work. And I'll end by saying that I really love when women have money, because not only are we able to live our best lives, but everybody around us is able to do so as well. I know for sure that that's what the future is going to look like.
For reshaping African digital media and elevating diverse voices, Uche Pedro is our champion.